The space is pretty big. It seems like there's mostly nothing out there, just endless vacuums and flaming balls of gas floating around doing their thing, but that hasn't stopped generations of Earthlings from obsessing over what's really going on up there. We've built huge space stations, launched wild machines that can see freaking galaxies away, and even managed to land a few of guys on that moody gray rock hovering in our sky. So if you want to learn more, here are 15 of the weirdest mind-expanding facts about space that will totally mess with your head. Let's shoot off this list with number 15. NASA has recorded eerie space sounds. Despite the popular belief that space is completely silent, NASA has managed to listen to it, just not in the way you'd expect. Using a method known as data sonification, scientists have converted radio waves, plasma vibrations, and magnetic field shifts into audible tracks that resemble sound. These aren't traditional sounds, of course, since space lacks a medium like air to carry them. But when these signals are run through special algorithms, they produce noises that are both fascinating and slightly unsettling. The results range from low rumblings and piercing whistles to rhythmic pulses that wouldn't sound out of place in a horror film soundtrack. Kepler, the same space telescope known for finding exoplanets, has been one of the main contributors to this eerie library of space music. So while space may not make sound in the conventional sense, it turns out the universe still has a voice, and it's weirder than anyone expected. Number 14. Asteroids that could end mankind. To avoid living out the plot of Armageddon, NASA actively tracks 1,197 asteroids that could, if they veer off course, wipe out humanity. These are officially known as PHAs, potentially hazardous asteroids. Any object larger than 350 feet and passing within 4.6 million miles of Earth is flagged and monitored. The numbers may seem random, but they're based on precise orbital mechanics. And just to make things extra unsettling, NASA has even released an orbital map showing the trajectories of each known PHA. The result looks a bit like a tangled spider web drawn by a very anxious astronomer. Dan Nosowitz wrote in Popular Science that it's astonishing we've managed to dodge them all so far. These asteroids, with their silent and unpredictable paths, pose a real and ongoing threat. So next time you look up at the stars, know that somewhere up there thousands of rocks are quietly minding their own business, until they are not. Number 13. The cost of space trip. Going to space is everyone's dream, but transporting even the simplest objects has always been a costly endeavor. In the early days of NASA, launching a single pound of cargo could cost around. Since then, the prices have climbed dramatically, with some commercial missions today charging over $40,000 per pound. That means something as small as a lemon could cost $2,000 to send into orbit. The costs include everything from rocket fuel and safety checks to the immense engineering required to defy gravity. Even water, a common item aboard space stations, becomes an unaffordable luxury when transported by the bottle. One 16-ounce bottle could cost anywhere between $9,100 and $43,000 depending on the rocket and payload system used. This is why every ounce matters on space missions. Engineers and scientists must weigh each item literally against its importance. While reusable launch systems are helping to lower prices, space is still very much an expensive playground. Number 12. A year on Venus. Venus has one of the strangest relationships with time in the solar system. The planet takes 203 Earth days to rotate once on its axis, meaning a single day there is incredibly long. However, because it's so close to the Sun, Venus completes a full orbit in just 2. This odd pairing means a year on Venus is basically shorter than a single day. Adding to the strangeness, Venus spins in the opposite direction of most planets, including Earth. Scientists call this retrograde rotation, and it causes the Sun to rise in the west and set in the east, a complete reversal of what we experience here. Venus is often called Earth's twin due to its size and rocky composition, but its atmosphere is made up of thick carbon dioxide, with clouds of sulfuric acid and surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead. Some crazy guys even believe that Venus was once a habitable planet, but due to the runaway greenhouse effect, it turned into a hellish inferno. Number 11. Space is full of space junk. Orbiting Earth right now are thousands of objects that serve no real purpose. Leftover fragments of satellites, defunct spacecraft, and pieces of old rockets. Collectively referred to as space junk, this cloud of debris orbits the planet at speeds exceeding 17,000 miles per hour, which is fast enough to cause serious damage. The U.S. Space Surveillance Network is currently tracking more than 23,000 pieces of space junk larger than a softball. But that doesn't even count the countless smaller fragments that are too tiny to monitor but still dangerous. A single collision between two objects in orbit could trigger what scientists call a Kessler syndrome, a chain reaction of impacts that fills the sky with fast-moving debris, potentially crippling future space missions. With more launches than ever, the problem is only getting worse. Cleaning it up, however, remains one of the most complex challenges in modern aerospace engineering. First, we've destroyed Earth, and now we're filling up space with junk. What's next? Let us know. Number 10. Water pools in space. In 2011, astronomers discovered a gigantic vapor cloud caught in the gravitational pull of a black hole deep within the universe, making it the largest known discovery of water anywhere. According to Universe Today, the cloud, technically known as a reservoir, is believed to hold enough water to fill Earth's oceans 40 trillion times over. While finding water in space isn't entirely new, the sheer scale of this discovery and the fact that the reservoir appears to have formed less than 2 billion years after the Big Bang has scientists seriously intrigued. NASA's Matt Bradford described it as proof that water was spread throughout the universe, even in its earliest stages. Unfortunately, this cosmic water cooler isn't exactly around the corner. It's located 10 billion light-years away, so using it as Earth's backup hydration source isn't really an option. But still, it's comforting to know there's at least one massive space puddle out there just doing its thing. Number 9. It would take millions of years to walk a light year. Ever wonder about this question? Well, it would take 225 million years to walk a light year. That might sound absurd, but here's how the math adds up. 1 light year equals approximately 5.9 trillion miles. If someone were to walk non-stop at a steady pace of 3 miles per hour, around 20 minutes per mile, they'd reach the end of a single light year in, yes, 225 million years. If they started the walk just before dinosaurs first appeared, they'd be arriving right about now. In 2008, Jessica Cheng broke down the math in Popular Science and added that you'd also need 11.8 billion pairs of shoes and burn through about 80 calories per mile, requiring over 2 trillion power bars to make the trip. Assuming you didn't die of boredom first. And even after all that effort, you'd still be barely out the front door. Astronomically speaking, Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to Earth, is still 4.22 light-years away. In other words, bring extra snack. Number 8. Eros asteroid of riches. In 1998, NASA's Near-Earth Asteroid Rendezvous spacecraft flew past an asteroid named Eros. And what it found was extraordinary. Eros, roughly 21 miles long, might be a literal floating gold mine. If just 3% of its composition is metal, a fairly standard estimate based on known meteorites, it could contain around 1.8 billion metric tons of gold and platinum group metals. David Whitehouse, then science editor at the BBC, suggested that Eros could hold a total value nearing $20,000 billion. Well, that's not a typo mistake. It's actually, despite its size and value, Eros isn't the largest asteroid out there, but its richness in rare materials makes it one of the most potentially profitable. The catch, of course, is the whole retrieving it without dying issue. Mining an asteroid is a bit trickier than digging a hole on Earth, and if it ever hits Earth, well, let's say the price tag becomes irrelevant, because so would everything else. Number 7. There are more stars than words spoken. According to Scientific American, there are more stars in the universe than words ever spoken by every human who has ever lived. That might sound like a wild exaggeration, but the math suggests otherwise. Nicola Willett from the Mars Society estimates the universe contains at least 70 sextillion stars, that's 70 followed by 22 zeros. She also notes there are likely over 100 billion galaxies in the universe, each containing billions, if not trillions of stars. Trying to visualize this is futile, as it's a scale beyond human comprehension. Even if we were to start counting stars one per second, it would take millions of lifetimes to scratch the surface. And here's the twist. All of these numbers are best guesses. No one knows the exact total. Counting stars is less a science and more an exercise in estimation, one with a massive, ever-growing margin of error. In short, we're floating in a universe so densely packed with stars, we'll never know how many. Number 6. In space without a spacesuit. As dramatic and Thanos as it looked in Gravity, the truth is even harsher. Exposure to space without a suit would end things very quickly. In fact, you'd remain conscious for just 10 to 15 seconds before blacking out due to hypoxia. There's no air, no pressure, and no mercy. The air in your lungs would expand instantly, likely tearing delicate tissue. At the same time, the oxygen in your blood would deplete, cutting off oxygen to the brain and other organs. If that wasn't enough, you'd start to swell as gases in your body expanded, causing bloating, ruptured capillaries, and in some cases, your blood to boil at body temperature. You'd also lose control of your bowels and bladder, and your skin would feel like it's burning due to UV exposure. Death wouldn't be immediate, but permanent damage would begin almost instantly. In short, space isn't cold and peaceful. It's a hostile vacuum that tears you apart from the inside out. Number 5. The moon suffers from moonquakes. When Apollo mission seismometers were planted on the moon between 1969 and 1972, nobody expected what they'd uncover. For years, they quietly transmitted data back to Earth until 1977 when they were switched off. The results suggested that the moon is far from dormant. Clive Neal of the University of Notre Dame led a team that reanalyzed the data and found 4 distinct types of moonquakes. Deep moonquakes triggered by Earth's gravitational pull, meteorite impacts causing small tremors, thermal quakes from the sun's heat, expanding the crust after a cold lunar night, and shallow moonquakes occurring 20-30 kilometers beneath the surface. Unlike earthquakes, which are absorbed by the Earth's molten interior and water-filled crust, moonquakes tend to echo for longer. Some have even lasted up to 10 minutes. This is because the moon's crust is bone-dry and rigid, more like ringing a tuning fork than cracking a sponge. What exactly causes moonquakes still isn't clear, but they're definitely real. Number 4. The Earth has more than one moon. Contrary to popular belief, the Earth doesn't just have one moon. While Luna remains our only true satellite, there are other celestial objects known as co-orbitals that share Earth's orbital path around the Sun. At least 6 of these are currently known, and while they aren't technically moons in the traditional sense, they're far from ordinary asteroids. These co-orbitals travel with Earth, occasionally drifting close enough to be influenced by its gravity. However, they don't follow a strict orbit around Earth itself, so you won't spot them in the night sky. Robert Jedicke, an astronomer at the University of Hawaii, has stated that at any given time, there's likely 1 or 2 meter-sized asteroids temporarily locked in Earth's gravitational field. The idea that Earth has a small group of fluctuating, temporary moons might seem odd, but in astronomical terms, it's entirely valid. Luna may be our main satellite, but it seems Earth has a few quiet companions trailing behind. Number 3. The center of the Milky Way galaxy. According to a recent study, the center of the Milky Way galaxy contains tens of thousands of black holes, possibly as many as 20,000. These aren't the dramatic supermassive black holes often discussed, but rather smaller stellar mass black holes, most of them hidden because black holes don't emit light. They're notoriously hard to detect. However, when one of these black holes forms a binary system with a star, it begins to feed on stellar material. This violent interaction produces X-rays. which scientists can observe and use to identify them. The study's findings suggest that while hundreds of these black holes are paired with stars, the vast majority are completely isolated, essentially invisible to most instruments. They drift silently, packed near the galactic core, far beyond our solar system. While they pose no direct threat to Earth, their sheer number reveals that our galaxy's center is far more crowded and dangerous than previously imagined. Number 2. The reason why space appears black. At first glance, it seems strange that space appears black. After all, if stars are everywhere, shouldn't the sky be filled with light in every direction? This question was first formalized in 1823 by German astronomer Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers and became known as Olbers' paradox. The answer lies in the nature of the universe itself. Space isn't infinite, static, or eternal. According to Edwin Hubble's observations, the universe is expanding, and light from the most distant stars simply hasn't had enough time to reach us. In fact, the universe is only about 13.8 billion years old. That means some regions of the cosmos are so distant that their light is still traveling toward us unseen. Additionally, light from early stars is stretched out as the universe expands, shifting into invisible wavelengths. The result is a sky that remains mostly dark, even though stars exist in every direction. Space isn't empty of light, it's just playing by different rules. Number 1. Outer space isn't empty space. While it's tempting to think of space as a vast, empty vacuum, the truth is more nuanced. Space is indeed a vacuum, but an imperfect one. It contains an extremely low density of particles, meaning it's not completely empty. Floating between stars and planets are clouds of interstellar dust, space plasma, rogue atoms, and high-energy particles known as cosmic rays. These materials are sparse, far sparser than anything on Earth, but they're still present. In certain areas, these particles clump into massive dust clouds or drift as plasma streams. They're also responsible for some of the phenomena detected by space telescopes, such as background radiation or strange bursts of energy. Even the so-called emptiest regions of space are still filled with faint traces of matter and energy. So while space might appear dark and silent, it's never truly empty. It's just operating on a scale so subtle and spread out that it escapes everyday human perception. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. We'll see you pretty soon.